Conservative Daily Beast correspondent Matt Lewis wrote a column that appeared this past Friday, basically saying that these Republicans that we have in the House of Representatives right now, essentially led by people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Madison Cawthorn, and he even threw in Kevin McCarthy for good measure, that they're scaring away the sane, the reasonable Republican voters. And, of course, that the Republican Party is doing possibly irreparable harm to their party and the future of the party by not courting the never-Trump voters. And he backs this up with a lot of data. I mean, he points out the fact that Trump was the first president since Herbert Hoover who lost the White House, the House, and the Senate during his tenure. That's a pretty remarkable feat that is not common in American politics. And yet Trump did it because he's hugely unpopular. But instead of distancing themselves, instead of kicking him to the curb and saying, we want nothing to do with you, the Republican Party has continued to bow down to him. And what's interesting to me, of course, about this piece is that Lewis isn't saying anything that I haven't already said. I mean, you know, if you've been watching me for a while, you know I've said these exact same things over and over and over to the point where even I'm sick of hearing them. But it's the truth. Donald Trump was a serial campaign loser. In fact, analysis of the data has shown that if he endorses you for your office that you're running for, you're actually less likely to win than if he doesn't endorse you. That's how toxic he is. He can spread this toxicity almost like a virus to other people, and then they become toxic. That's how bad the guy is. The problem is, at this point, it's too far past the Republican turning around. Because, as Lewis correctly points out, now you've got your Marjorie Taylor Greenes. Now you got your Madison Cawthorns. Now you got your Lauren Boeberts and your Matt Gaetz. Those people are the new face of the Republican Party. And they're carrying Trump's message with them. And while they do it, they're also terrifying the rest of the country. Normal people do not support Marjorie Taylor Greene. Normal people are terrified for the future of this country when they see those unhinged videos of her walking down the halls screaming and harassing her fellow members of Congress. Or the one where, even before she was elected, she was harassing AOC at her office looking like the damn Joker. Yeah, normal people don't like that. Normal people don't want to associate with that. Normal people don't want to vote for a party that openly embraces it, which is what the Republican Party has done today. And that, of course, is what Lewis is warning us about. It's not just Trump anymore. It's all of these weirdos. And the GOP can't shake that image. They have embraced it. They have welcomed these people. Yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene got kicked off her committees. She'll be back on them after the midterms if she wins re-election, which again, she's poised to do. And then the cycle just perpetuates itself. But in the process, as Lewis again points out, you're alienating the sane Republican voters, as he puts it, the reasonable Republicans out there, the never-Trump Republicans. You know, the GOP always used to call itself the Big Tent Party. We welcome everybody. Come on into the big tent of the GOP. And here they are. They can't even unite their own party to try to win elections. Even when, again, as Lewis points out, Biden and his Afghanistan withdrawal, even though people support the withdrawal, they don't support the way it was done. Republicans can't capitalize on that because they went to the extreme and said, well, let's impeach the bastard. Okay, you really just kind of screwed the pooch there. And again, 14 months from now, midterms roll around, voters will have moved on from that. Voters will have absolutely moved on from that. And the Republican Party will be left with a gaggle of crazy people that the Democrats, if they are smart about it, will elevate as the new face of the Republican Party, thereby scaring off the last of those sane Republicans. The Federal Election Commission sent a notice to Marjorie Taylor Greene's husband this week, who happens to be serving as one of the treasurers, I guess, for her campaign, and they want to know why exactly she raised $3.5 million but didn't itemize any of those donations. Now, before we go any further, let me explain here. Raising $3.5 million for a politician is not a problem. Raising $3.5 million in unitemized donations is not a problem, so long as all of those donations were under $200, meaning anything $199.99 and below, you do not have to itemize, and you do not have to list the names of the donor. So the FEC right now is simply trying to make sure that $3.5 million raised by Marjorie Taylor Greene this year is legit, and that every penny of it came from small donors who gave $199.99 or less. Now, here's the issue, though. In order for this to be accurate, she would have had to have gotten $3.5 million from at least 17,630 different individuals, giving $199.99. So more realistically, we're talking well over 17,000 different donors giving her this money. Again, totally not out of the realm of possibility. But there's a couple things to keep in mind here. Yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene did see a huge spike in donations earlier this year, right? Once she got kicked off her committees, used all that negative publicity, turned it into a fundraising scheme, she raised a lot of money from it. But she didn't raise $3.5 million from it. And then, of course, we also know that she's currently, off and on again, I guess, on her tour around the country with Matt Gaetz, where they're not raising enough money to actually even pay for the tour. So whatever it is she's selling out there to the public isn't resonating with the people she's talking to because it's not transforming into donations. So, yeah, I guess when you look at it that way, it does seem a little fishy, doesn't it? So what could be the case, and this is pure speculation until we get answers, obviously we don't know for sure, but this money could have come, from corporate donors, from big-time donors, whoever they are, giving more than $200 a pop, in which case all she's going to have to do is file an amended thing, as they so often do, and say, oh, okay, sorry, yeah, I forgot to mention so-and-so gave me $5,000, whatever. Here's the problem I have with all of this. And again, it's incredibly likely, and the most likely scenario is that this all did come from small donors. So don't get me wrong about that. This probably all came from small donors. Problem is, we have seen too many politicians, just in the last month, get popped in the media for screwing up their financial disclosure forms. And then, rather than being punished for it, rather than being investigated, all they get to do is, oh, okay, well, you just amend this here, and here you go, I'm done, whatever. No, you screwed up. See, here's the thing. If I screw up on my taxes and I file that with the federal government, much like they have to do with their campaign financial disclosures, if I mess up on my form, the IRS doesn't come back to me and say, oh, hey, this is probably nothing. Could you just fix this and just send it back to us? Cool, thanks, you're great. No. They'll conduct an audit. I have to pay fines and fees for filling out the form wrong, for paying late, whatever it is, for not disclosing certain income. You can get in a hell of a lot of trouble when we fill out what amounts to basically our financial disclosure forms every year. If you do something wrong, you don't get a mulligan on it. You don't get to just say, oops, totally forgot all this money, like, Lauren Boebert did and Matt Gaetz did. We don't get that same opportunity that these individuals who should be held to a higher standard than you and me, we don't get that. And again, this is actually less about Marjorie Taylor Greene at this point and more about these other Republicans who didn't actually disclose all their money. I'm willing to bet at the end of the day, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt on this particular issue. This money probably did come from small donors. Marjorie Taylor Greene is probably too toxic, at least at the moment, for big donors and certainly big corporations to come in and shower her with cash, especially at this point in her career. Meaning she's a freshman member of Congress, not even finished with her first term, and she doesn't even sit on any committees. So yeah, I am willing to bet that this money, this $3.5 million, did come from small donors. But it's the other people that piss me off even more. Because if we make the same mistake on our financial disclosures, our taxes, we don't get the same kind of leniency to say, oops, forgot to tell you about tens of thousands of dollars I made. Maybe you want to know about that now, I guess. Nah, we don't get that, and they shouldn't either. Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene apparently just has money to burn, because last week she missed a deadline to appeal a $2,500 fine for refusing to wear a mask in the U.S. House of Representatives. This is the second time that Marjorie Taylor Greene has been fined several $1,000s for not wearing a mask when she is supposed to be. Obviously, earlier this year with the new Congress, Pelosi, Speaker of the House, put the rule in place, hey, you're coming in here, you got to have the mask. Pretty simple, right? I mean, a lot of businesses still have that. Hospitals still have it. This is not uncommon. Federal buildings have that requirement. You have to wear a mask because we're still watching COVID numbers explode throughout the country. But Marjorie Taylor Greene would rather make a political stand. She would rather be the outcast, the pariah, the lone individual taking on the system is what she thinks she is. But in reality, you're just an idiot who's costing yourself thousands of dollars. I mean, thousands and thousands of dollars, Marjorie, just because you don't want to wear a mask. This is ridiculous. This is stupid. But this is what we've come to expect from you, because this is what you do. You've always got to be the center of attention. You've got to be the focal point. No publicity is bad publicity, right, Marjorie? Well, I would say it is when it starts impacting your personal bank account. Because again, you missed the deadline to appeal this. Like, this fine is in place now. And the previous fine you got, when you appealed that, you actually lost the appeal, so you had to pay it anyway. Is it worth it? Is it worth it to be one of the dumbest members of Congress? Is it worth it to watch your own personal financial drop by thousands of dollars just because you wanted to stick it to Nancy Pelosi? Look, Marjorie Taylor Greene won't even admit whether or not she's vaccinated. So yes, of course, of all people, you need to be wearing a mask. If you're not even willing to say, hey, look, I am protected, I've got the vaccine, I'm sorry, I forgot this one time, then okay, understandable, but still dangerous. But she won't even do that. She won't say whether or not she's had the vaccine. I'm willing to bet she probably has, because if she hadn't, she would proudly say that, no, I haven't. And she would appeal to all the anti-vax conservatives out there who think this is some kind of government oppression. So her refusal to say whether or not she has leads me to believe that she has had it. She just doesn't want to piss off the crazies. So there's that. But again, I have to ask, is it worth it? Losing all of this money for what? To play to the people who are already voting for you anyway? To play to the people who support you but aren't donating to you? I mean, hell, we've seen enough of that with her little tour with Matt Gaetz. They're going around spending money like crazy in hopes of raising more money from the people who show up to hear them, but it ain't materializing. They're losing money on that tour. Tens of thousands of dollars the two of them have lost together because people may like them, but they're not giving them any money. So Marjorie, just from a purely financial standpoint, you're killing yourself here. Your campaign is hemorrhaging money. You know, the FEC's looking into what happened to $3.5 million that you raised, because that certainly is an amount that raises eyeballs, and they want to make sure you're reporting it correctly. So you got all kinds of money issues. I would think that putting a mask over your face to avoid having to pay out thousands of dollars would be a no-brainer to somebody in your financial situation. But then again, you yourself are a no-brainer, so I guess it kind of makes sense. Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is just ready to call it a day on America and shut down the entire federal government. And not just like when we have those temporary government shutdowns when there's a budget battle and we don't get something passed. No. Marjorie Taylor Greene, based on what she told Steve Bannon this past week on his podcast, appears to think that we should just shut the government down for good. Here's what she said. I'll tell you what I have to say, Steve. Shut it down. Shut the government down. Who cares? Guess what? The American people can get it done at home without the government. I say put up a fight, shut it down. We shouldn't be spending this. That's what she was referring to, the reconciliation bill to $3.5 trillion. We shouldn't be spending this. But hell, shut it all down. We can do it at home, right, folks? So everybody go to your garage, your shed, your storage room, whatever. Get your shovels. Get your asphalt machines, because we apparently have to do the infrastructure ourselves, according to Marjorie Taylor Greene's comments here. We can do it better ourselves. So I don't know anything about paving roads or building schools, but I guess under Marjorie Taylor Greene's vision for America, we're all going to have to band together. Most likely, I guess, quit our jobs because, this would be a full-time job. But get busy. Hope you have the right tools. If not, you're just going to have to use your hands to get out there and smooth those roads. She's so dumb. She is so dumb. She is so dumb that I can't even think of a way to finish that sentence because I feel like talking about her is making me dumber. But here's the thing. And this is something I had talked about years and years ago on Ring of Fire, so I want to bring this point up again. Imagine you're going in for a job interview. Or better yet, imagine you're the person interviewing somebody for a job, right? And the person comes into your company, sits in front of you at a desk and says, listen, your company sucks. I hate your company. I think we need to shut your company down for good. Now, you going to hire me? No, what you're going to say is, okay, could you get the hell out of my office and stop wasting my time? Clearly you hate this place. Why in God's name did you even show up? Yet that's what Republicans do to American voters. They go out there and they tell them, government sucks. Government shouldn't exist. Government should get out of your business. They shouldn't do anything. Hey, so by the way, go put me up there, right? $170,000 plus a year salary to do nothing? Hell yeah, I'm all in. And that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene has done. She's actively calling to shut down the federal government. So does that mean she loses her job? Does that mean she loses her salary? Because if so, maybe I'm on the fence about it. But no, for real. Stop electing people who tell you that the government sucks, yet they want to be a part of it. Like, shouldn't we start questioning those motives? If they're out there telling us every day that the government sucks, the government's full of stupid people, so please re-elect me, like, aren't they admitting that they're terrible? How do people not see through this? How do people not wrap their heads around the fact that, yeah, the government sucks at times, but you know why it sucks? Because of people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, because of your Jim Jordans and your Louis Gohmerts and your Lauren Boeberts and your Mitch McConnells and your Rand Pauls and all of these other Republicans who love to tell you how bad the government is, even though they've been there, some of them, for decades. It's not an admission about the government, it's an admission about themselves. They're bad at their jobs, and they hate their jobs, and they hate who they work for. So please, for the love of God, stop rehiring them. You wouldn't hire somebody that says they want to shut your company down. So why would you elect somebody who says they want to shut the government down? It makes zero sense, but that is what Republicans have been telling us for decades. Every time Marjorie Taylor Greene gets in front of Congress to speak, she brings the collective IQ of that entire chamber down a couple of notches. This individual might be one of the dumbest people to ever serve in Congress during my lifetime. And to be honest, that says a lot because she's also serving alongside people like Louis Gohmert and Lauren Boebert. But here's what Marjorie Taylor Greene did this week to dumb down the entire chamber. In fact, I'll just let the video speak for itself. Here it is.
This is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real. The Green New Deal, surprise, serves China and China only. You can go ahead and put number 1 up. So today, talking about the Green New Deal and the all-out war on the men and women.
One thing that's super clear from that clip is that Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't know what communism is. It's just a word she likes to throw out when she can't explain something or when she doesn't understand something. Everything she doesn't like is communism, because that's how simple brains work, and that's exactly what we're dealing with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She cannot comprehend complex ideas, so she just says, screw it, it's communism. But the fact that she resorted to using memes on the floor of Congress, and for the record, she's not even the only one who did it that day. Like, that's the worst part. Like, we're now at a point where Congress is using memes, very, poor memes, to try to make idiotic points that aren't even based in reality. The Green New Deal is not communism. The Green New Deal does not somehow secretly benefit China. If anything, it actually protects American interests better than we currently are. China, even though they recently said they're not going to, fund any more foreign coal-fired power plants, they've basically been a large purchaser of United States coal. So if we cut them off from that, we're actually hurting China to a degree. We're not helping them. We're not handing them anything. We're taking something away from them. And instead, we're building clean, renewable energy sources here in the United States, which helps all of us. It helps us breathe a little better, gives people an opportunity to work outside of the coal mines, where they can develop all sorts of debilitating diseases that could ultimately kill them, and instead put them to work through a jobs training program, building windmills, building solar panels, improving the United States energy grid infrastructure to be able to handle this renewable energy more efficiently. So we're not killing jobs, we're actually creating more jobs. And the people who work in the dirty energy industry would be moved over to the clean energy industry. So this is a net benefit here for the United States. But Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks anything, again, that she doesn't understand or doesn't like or whatever, it's straight up communism that somehow helps China. Maybe it's nice. Maybe it's nice to have that break after 4 years of Russia being the worst place on earth. Now we got China being the worst place on earth, trying to threaten the United States at every turn. Biden is not in the pocket of China. China doesn't give a damn, really, if we even enact the Green New Deal. They don't benefit from it. It's not even going to hurt them that much, even if we cut off their coal supply, which really isn't that big to begin with, because they're already trying to cut back on that. So can we stop listening to the stupid talk of Marjorie Taylor Greene? Can we stop allowing her to make everybody dumber every time she talks? The answer is yes, we could. But unfortunately, it would require a hell of a lot of Republicans to get on board with that, so we could get 2/3 of the members of the House of Representatives to agree to kick her out, so that we wouldn't ever have to see her do something as stupid as bringing up memes on the floor of Congress ever again. But that would rely on Republicans having a backbone, so that's not a thing that's ever going to happen. According to Democratic Representative Sean Patrick Maloney from the state of New York, during the Capitol riot, where he was among the individuals in the Congress moved to that secure location, as they called it, he looked over and he saw one colleague with her staffers and described her mood as gleeful, said that she was enjoying what was taking place outside that secure location. And to nobody's surprise, that colleague happens to be Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Here's what Maloney said. This was on MSNBC. Look, I was there. I was on the House floor. I was in that undisclosed location with a bunch of Republicans who were, well, one in particular, who was gleeful at what was transpiring outside. It took me a minute to understand why she was having such a good time, but I saw it. I saw it with her staff who caught up to her. They were excited about what was going on. They had been at the White House, I believe, the day before, talking about what was going to happen. I mean, it's not really a mystery when Mo Brooks is down at the rally whipping up the crowd and pointing them towards the Capitol, I believe, with a bulletproof vest on. A lot of this is right out there in the open. He's not wrong. He's absolutely not wrong. But it is funny because Marjorie Taylor Greene, her office, released a statement refuting Maloney's claim, and this is what they said. This is total bullshit. Sean Maloney is a liar. Congresswoman Greene has repeatedly denounced the events of January 6th, including the day of the event when she filmed a video condemning the lawlessness while in a secure location. I love how they can't even be professional in their refutation of this, right? If that's even a word, I don't even know, whatever. But they can't even refute this professionally. You know, they can't have even a little bit of decorum. They're just like, this is bullshit. Like, come on. You are supposed to be professional. I know none of you are. Like, Greene is not, and clearly her staff is not, but come on. You can't just say, listen, he's absolutely making these things up. This isn't true. This isn't what transpired. Here are the facts. That's all you had to do. You didn't have to go, that extreme with it, that angry with it, because it only makes it seem like, he's probably telling the truth because you got this irate about it. And here's the thing. Sure, Marjorie Taylor Greene did, in fact, condemn it half-heartedly. She also, at one point, blamed it on Antifa. I believe she actually went into Congress and blamed it on Antifa. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that wasn't her, but I'm pretty sure it was. She also has been leading the charge, along with Republican Representatives Matt Gaetz and Mo Brooks and Louis Gohmert, to condemn the conditions under which these Capitol rioters are being held in prison, even though there's literally no evidence to suggest that any of them are being mistreated. She has referred to them as political prisoners. So why should we not believe what Sean Maloney says, based solely on Marjorie Taylor Greene's actions since the insurrection, the way she speaks about these people who are in jail, who have been convicted, who have pleaded guilty in some instances, the way she refers to them as political prisoners? You know what? I'm going to side with Sean Patrick Maloney on this rather than the idiot spokesperson who came out and claimed all this was bullshit. That's who I'm going to believe here. Marjorie Taylor Greene has defended these individuals who engaged in these activities on the day of the Capitol riot. She has defended them for months now. I have no doubt in my mind that Maloney is telling the truth and that she was happy that all of this was happening. You know the thing I love the most about Republicans is that they're not afraid to show how stupid they are. In fact, they almost seem confident in their stupidity. And to be honest, you know what? That's an admirable trait. We should all strive to be as confident as Republicans when they are wrong. Several great examples happened this week when Republicans referred to the Build Back Better Act and the infrastructure package as communism. Marco Rubio got rightfully toasted on Twitter for calling it Marxism. He actually had Nobel Prize-winning economist Paul Krugman have to correct him on that. But then there was Marjorie Taylor Greene. And see, Marjorie Taylor Greene is now upset that apparently Republicans are joining in on this, as she called it, communist takeover of the United States. Here's what she wrote on Twitter. Rumor on Capitol Hill is Republicans, not Democrats, are surrendering to Nancy Pelosi's pressure. It's pathetic that some Republicans are going to pass Biden's communist takeover. And she added the hashtag Surrender Caucus. Communist takeover. Again, Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't know what that word means, but she uses it at every given opportunity. Because everything that confuses her, everything that scares her, everything that she can't explain is somehow just communism. And that's how Republicans write things off. Like, hey, what do you think about this? Instead of saying, well, I'm not too sure, they just say, communism. It's communism. Everything's communism. Everything I hate is communism. But it didn't end with the tweet, because she went on to continue to attack her fellow Republicans during an appearance, of course, on Steve Bannon's podcast, which I guess is better than earlier in the week when she went on the Cat Turd podcast and No, that's not a joke. She actually went on that. But here she is on Steve Bannon's podcast, going after her fellow Republicans. She said, here's what I need all of you to do. I need you to get on board with me. I've already told almost every single Republican in the GOP conference in the House that I will primary them and personally spend money against them in their primary if they vote for the infrastructure bill or the $3.5 trillion budget. All right, now hold up there, Marjorie. You will primary them? Are you saying that you are going to run against every Republican in the country? You're going to go out and personally primary, because you said, I will primary them. You didn't say, I'm going to find a candidate. You just said you were going to primary them. So I'm curious as to how that's going to work out for you. I mean, that's a lot of money, a lot of campaigning. And of course, 50 different states to be in, traveling from district to district, running in these races that you can't run in because you don't live there. So yeah, weird thing to say, but you're going to spend money, right? Oh yeah. You're going to spend, that would take what? Hundreds of millions of dollars to get these primary people ready to take on these Republican incumbents? Not to mention all the work that goes into finding people that align with your values. I mean, I know there's a lot of crazy Republicans out there, but are there enough crazy Republicans out there, right? I mean, are there enough MAGA hat wearers ready to run for Congress under the Marjorie Taylor Greene banner? See, I don't think you thought this through, Marjorie. You're talking a big game, but your mouth is writing checks that your body can't cash, to, put it that way. So here's the thing, Marjorie. Give it up. Let it go. You lost. And no, it's not friggin' communism. Republican Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene and Liz Cheney apparently got into a shouting match in the House of Representatives on Thursday afternoon, according to Democratic Representative Jamie Raskin. And the way Raskin tells the story is he was sitting there talking to Liz Cheney, and this was shortly after the vote to hold Bannon in contempt. So he's chatting it up with Liz Cheney. Suddenly, Marjorie Taylor Greene decides to come up and start yelling at Liz Cheney. And Liz Cheney starts yelling back. Raskin says he's not exactly sure what, they started yelling about in the first place, but he does know that at one point it got onto the subject of the so-called Jewish space lasers that earlier this year it was revealed that Marjorie Taylor Greene subscribes to the conspiracy theory that the Camp Fire wildfire in the state of California in 2018, the worst in state's history, was somehow started by the elites using a space laser to start the blaze. So two members of the House of Representatives in a shouting match over Jewish space lasers starting a massive wildfire in California three years ago. Can we all agree at this point that these aren't people that we should be taking seriously? That it's a damn shame these people are even a part of our government? I just keep picturing anybody else that doesn't live in the United States reading U.S. news and seeing a headline like this. Like, what do they think of us? I mean, really, I would love to know the international opinion of lunatics like Marjorie Taylor Greene pushing ridiculously insane conspiracy theories about space lasers. Or, hey, how about the fact that our former president, before he left office, thought the little smart thermostats could somehow be changing votes? We're a nation of idiots. And unfortunately, we're giving those idiots, the biggest idiots among us, seats of power. Instead of shunning them, we're elevating them. That's terrifying. That truly is terrifying. But nobody is more terrifying, to be honest, than Marjorie Taylor Greene. She has made her colleagues fearful that she is going to physically hurt them. We have had reports of that over this year. We have the video of her going to AOC's office before she was even an elected official, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and harassing her, yelling through the mail slot, and then laughing to the camera like the Joker from The Dark Knight. She has been reported to chase Democrats down the hallway, screaming at them. And now we have reports of her getting into a screaming match with a member of her own party, Liz Cheney. What's it going to take? And I know the answer. For the Republicans in the House to finally say enough is enough. You guys could band together with the Democrats and vote to expel her. I promise you, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not doing your party any favors. All right, she herself is hemorrhaging money. You have 7 candidates lined up to challenge her in next year's midterms already. People hate her. She might be loved in her district, but who gives a damn? That's a deep red district anyway. You could slap a frog on the ballot with an R next to its name and it's gonna win. You don't have to worry about losing that seat to the Democrats, so kick her goofy ass out of the House and maybe restore a little bit of integrity to that chamber. Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is back out there once again this week, folks, trying to defend the Capitol rioters. I mean, after all, those are her people. And so this week, she tweeted out, she didn't tweet it out, I'm sorry. She told Steve Bannon during an interview. Let me just read it. January 6th was just a riot at the Capitol. And if you think about what our Declaration of Independence says, it says to overthrow tyrants. Okay, so now here's the thing about your little statement right there to Steve Bannon. You went beyond just defending them, okay? You're not just trying to downplay it, although you tried by saying, it's just a riot at the Capitol, right? I mean, come on. What's a little rioting between friends here, right? No. You went further than that. You didn't just justify it. You seem to have endorsed it there. If you think about what our Declaration of Independence says, it says to overthrow tyrants. You're giving these people permission to overthrow what you perceive to be a tyrant? Who is the tyrant, by the way? Who was the tyrant at the time? Because on January 6th, the President of the United States was Donald Trump. Biden hadn't even been confirmed yet with the, certification of the electoral college process by both chambers of Congress. So who was the tyrant they were overthrowing? The other question is, what the hell does this even mean? Do you truly believe that Joe Biden was not the duly elected president of the United States? Do you believe that it was tyrannical that we held an election in 2020? What exactly are you getting at here, Marjorie? I mean, we already know, based on the Rolling Stone bombshell from earlier this week, that you allegedly were coordinating with the organizers of that rally. And if you're trying to build a defense for yourself, you're doing a piss poor job. Going out there, justifying, defending what these rioters did that day, and of course trying to downplay it was just a riot. Just a riot? Riot in itself is bad. You never want just a riot. Like, oh, how are things say? Just a riot, typical Mondays, right? No. This is an insane statement by a woman who clearly does not have the brain capacity and the mental faculties to be serving as a duly elected representative for the United States of America. She is a danger, she is a threat, and she not only condones what these individuals did that day, hell, she downright supports it at this point. That's what I think. That's what this statement means to me. You were okay with them overthrowing the government. You admit as much in your statement there. That's how I'm reading it. If you look at the Declaration of Independence, it says it's okay to overthrow tyrants. There were no tyrants, Marjorie. Except for the one that, basically sent those people down to the Capitol, Donald Trump. There's your tyrant. But they weren't there to overthrow him. They were there to overthrow the duly elected President of the United States and prevent the electoral process from being able to finish. That's what they were doing. They were the tyrants. They are the fascists. They are the ones who wanted to install a dictator here in the United States, undoing everything that this country was founded upon. And you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, clearly support that. Democratic Representative Adam Schiff recently appeared on the Daily Beast's podcast, where he took a pretty serious shot, but fair shot, against Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, and of course what the Republican Party of today has become. Here's what Schiff said. Today's GOP, it's become a cult. A man runs for president on a platform of building a wall that he says Mexico is going to pay for. It's an absurd idea to begin with. He becomes president. Of course, he doesn't build a wall because Mexico's not going to pay for him. And then his buddies, including Mr. Bannon, raise money from his own supporters to purportedly build a wall, steal it, and then he pardons them for stealing from his own people. It's the most consummate den of thieves and grifters imaginable. Okay, pretty good shot at the Republican Party. All accurate, all accurate. Here's what he says about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think the Marjorie Taylor Greenes are legitimately nuts. But most of the Republican conference that's pushing the big lie understands it's a big lie. They're not stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. And then it's just a craven capitulation to Donald Trump because they fear a primary because they want to advance within the party. Therein lies the problem. He's right. And I've said this before too, I do legitimately think Marjorie Taylor Greene is nuts. I think there is absolutely something wrong with her. And we have seen this even in the videos we've talked about since before she was even elected. Showing up at the Capitol, harassing Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez through the mail slot on her door. This is a deranged individual in my opinion. And she's not pretending. She is absolutely not pretending. Plenty of them are. And that is the distinction that needs to be made. And that's what makes some people more dangerous than others. And that's why I do believe Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, these individuals are legitimately dangerous because, as Schiff puts it, they're legitimately nuts. But then you have the other people who only pretend to be stupid, who only pretend to be crazy. And honestly, I think Matt Gaetz falls into that category. Ted Cruz definitely falls into that category. Louis Gohmert, he's over with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And the reason we have to make those distinctions and the reason that is important is because you do have to separate the fakers from the nuts. Because the fakers, you might be able to get through to them. You might be able to work with them in the future. They might be able to snap out of it if they see the direction of the party going a different way. Those are people who still have a grasp on reality but pretend not to in order to pander to their voters. Now, I'm not saying they can be saved or they can be helped or they can be rational at times. I'm saying that there's a possibility that that could happen. But of course, not if they continue to gaslight their own voters and make them crazy. Then they have to keep up with that level of crazy. And before you know it, maybe they turn into a bunch of Marjorie Taylor Greenes as well. But the legitimately crazy people are the ones who are the biggest threat right now. They're the ones who are unpredictable. They're the ones who are actually out there not just gaslighting people because they believe it themselves. They're outright encouraging them to be just as crazy, just as nuts. And those are the ones, unfortunately, pulling that party further into that crazy zone, the twilight zone, really, of political parties. And that's what we're dealing with today. So again, I agree with Adam Schiff. I do not think that Marjorie Taylor Greene is pretending. I believe there are a lot of pretenders out there who are probably already too far gone anyway. But Adam Schiff, again, is correct. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is most likely legitimately nuts. This past week, Marjorie Taylor Greene angrily announced during an interview with Steve Bannon that she was not vaccinated, would not be getting vaccinated, wants nothing to do with the vaccine, unless, of course, she eventually chooses to get the vaccine. Now, this news broke the day after another Marjorie Taylor Greene story broke. And that story was that she has now been fined 20 separate times for refusing to wear a face mask in the Capitol building, in Congress. And those fines now total $48,000. So the unvaccinated Marjorie Taylor Greene, on at least 20 different instances, has walked into that chamber not wearing a mask, not obeying the rules, potentially exposing God knows how many people, other members of Congress, staffers, reporters, whoever it is, possibly exposing them to the virus. This is absolutely unacceptable. It was bad enough, when she wouldn't reveal her vaccination status. A lot of us assumed that because she won't reveal it, clearly she is vaccinated, but doesn't want to tell her voters that. But with her admission this week that she is not vaccinated, that she is still exceptionally vulnerable to the virus and its effects, and of course spreading it, these fines become even more significant. Because it's not just that, she wasn't paying attention to the rules. She was recklessly endangering people, is how I feel about this. And if I had the authority, if I was one of the people, I would absolutely pursue reckless endangerment charges. I'm not. I wasn't one of those people. I wasn't involved. So it's up to them if they choose to go that route. I think they should. That rule is in place for a reason. And it was lightened, before the Delta variant hit, when things looked like they were going down a bit. They got rid of the mask rule. Delta came surging, so did COVID cases. They put the rule back in place. Marjorie Taylor Greene says, to hell with it, I'm not going to do it. And I'm not even vaccinated. This woman herself is a sickness that is infecting Congress, a sickness that is spreading across the country even faster than COVID, in my opinion. That's what Marjorie Taylor Greene is. Something needs to be done. And honestly, my solution for this, just like, by the way, the new vaccine mandate, with the timetable put in place this week for companies with more than 100 employees, I think Congress should have a vaccine mandate. Not just to either force people like Marjorie Taylor Greene to get the vaccine or risk being expelled from Congress, but because you got to do what you're making everybody else do too. Let's be fair about it, really. You can't not have the same mandates in place for yourself and then get mad when people get mad that you're making them do it. So, kind of does go both ways. So put your money where your mouth is, set the good example, put a vaccine mandate in place for Congress. After all, hey, you got more than 100 people there. How are you not also having to comply with this? Federal contractors, anybody doing contract with the federal government has to have a vaccine. But not Congress itself? That's idiotic. And as long as you have idiotic rules in place, you're going to have idiots like Marjorie Taylor Greene who do not comply with them. That's why this is so important. You can fine her all you want. She's got money. She doesn't care. She's making a political statement, both in refusing to wear get the vaccine and refusing to wear the mask. Those are political statements for her. So implement the vaccine mandate and take away her ability to put people in danger just so she can pander to her base. The unvaccinated Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene announced this week that she is basically going to turn her family gatherings over Thanksgiving and Christmas break into giant petri dishes, and she couldn't be happier about it. What happened was that a tweet went out quoting Dr. Anthony Fauci, where Fauci said this. He said, if you get vaccinated and your family's vaccinated, you can feel good about enjoying a typical Thanksgiving, Christmas with your family and close friends. So Marjorie Taylor Greene comes back, she quote tweets it, and she says, I'm not vaccinated and not going to be. I feel good, fantastic actually, about celebrating Thanksgiving and Christmas with my family and close friends. I wonder how your family feels about that. Are they vaccinated? Your extended family, your parents, maybe your aunts and uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews, whatever you got. Are they all just clamoring to sit next to Aunt Margie at Thanksgiving dinner next week? I have to imagine the answer to that is no. You know, they're probably going to stick you over at like the kids' table because, oh, shucks, we ran out of room at the grown-up table. You go sit with the little ones because they don't know the crazy things you're saying. They think you're playing pretend. So that's probably where Marjorie Taylor Greene should end up. But again, she is not vaccinated. She has now been fined. Earlier in the week, it was $60,000. Now we know it's now up to $63,000 for refusing to wear a mask in the House of Representatives, which is still required. So she's lost $63,000 of her $174,000 salary. The money comes straight out of the salary. She doesn't have to pay it. They take it out, so she has no control over that. And now you're sitting here boasting about being unvaccinated and about to go be around everybody you allegedly care about? I call bullcrap on that. Not only on the part where you said you have close friends. I'm willing to bet that's not quite true. You're probably the one that they have a separate text message chain going that you're not on so they can talk about you behind your back. But either way, if you cared about these other people, if you cared about any other human being other than yourself, you would either get vaccinated or you wouldn't attend these large gatherings without wearing a mask. But you're not going to do that because you're still trying to stick it to the imaginary man, whatever the hell that is. Marjorie Taylor Greene is emblematic of everything that is wrong with today's Republican Party. And not just in the extremism, in the, craziness that comes out of her mouth, in the way she feels about other people and her role in protecting other people. Because she believes she does not have a role to protect other people, that that's not her job, that's not her responsibility, that we don't live in a society where people are supposed to take care of one another, or at the very least, look out for each other's well-being. That is an incredibly selfish way to go through life. But that is what far too many Republicans believe. And honestly, at the end of the day, I believe that is the big divide between the left and the right. I think the left genuinely cares about taking care of other people, looking out for other people. Most of them do. On the right, it simply doesn't exist. They do not care. They pretend to care. They try to come up with all these fake issues that make it seem like they care, even though, again, they're fake issues, things that you don't really need to be protected from, but they're protecting you from it, things like critical race theory. But they don't actually care because we've seen that throughout the pandemic. They have been given the option, the opportunity, not even option, let's call it an opportunity to put their money where their mouth is and show that they want to take care of other human beings, that they actually want to protect them, this time from something that could actually kill them. And every one of them, especially Marjorie Taylor Greene, is failing. They're failing as a political party. A lot of them are failing as individuals. They're failing as leaders because they don't care about anybody but themselves. Folks, there's trouble a-brewing in the Republican Party where you have some of the wackiest members actually fighting with the other half of the wackiest members. The latest little dust-up happened this week between Dan Crenshaw and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene, as we all know, has been pushing for the Republican Party to punish those dastardly Republicans who had the audacity to vote for the infrastructure bill. She wants them punished. She wants them stripped of their committee assignments, not unlike Paul Gosar got stripped of his committee assignments this week, and Greene herself also stripped of her committee assignments. And she wants the same fate to befall those Republicans. And Dan Crenshaw just finally had enough. Talking to the press this week, Crenshaw said this was a stupid idea. He also, of course, admitted that he never saw the Gosar video and that, that's stupid too. But also this other thing over here that Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to do, that's stupid. I never thought I'd say this, but on that part of it, I agree with Dan Crenshaw. I know, checking a Make sure nothing horrible happens after I say that, then maybe this is the apocalypse. But no, Dan Crenshaw is right. Marjorie Taylor Greene is absolutely being stupid here. And what's even funnier is that also Matt Gaetz this week called out Marjorie Taylor Greene for wanting to impeach Joe Biden, and he said that was a bad idea. It was stupid. So we are starting to see these divisions amongst the craziest of the crazies. Because here's the thing. What I'm seeing unfold here is the fake crazies versus the real crazies. I've said this plenty of times before, and I think it bears repeating. There are plenty of Republicans in office today that I believe are genuinely just nuts. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Louis Gohmert, Jim Jordan, they totally believe all the crazy things they say and do. Then you have the people who just pretend. I think Dan Crenshaw is one of them. I think Matt Gaetz is one of them. I think those guys are actually smart enough to have figured out how to play the game. It's a horrible game they're playing. They're horrible people, don't get me wrong. I do not like either of them. But I don't think they're genuinely crazy. I think the opposite. I think they're very smart. And that's what makes them more dangerous than the actual crazies. Because they can turn it on and off. They can convince this crowd that they're just as nuts as them and you should support them. And at the same time, they can go and talk to the voters in a rational, intelligent way and attract those not crazy people. That's a far more dangerous politician than a Marjorie Taylor Greene. Taylor Greene cannot go out there and talk to normal people and get them to be on her side. Gaetz and Crenshaw, they can. That's what makes them so scary. Matt Gaetz, I do not believe that he wants a future in politics. I think he wants to be famous. He wants a TV show. And of course, he may, of course, end up with neither of those sitting in a jail cell. But I think Crenshaw has a very large future within today's Republican Party. And I think he knows that too. And that's why he's calling out people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. He's calling out the other Republicans who voted to censure Crenshaw, and he's calling for all of them to stop the fighting and come together. He is attempting to be a leader at a time when the Republican Party doesn't have one. So he is definitely somebody to watch in the future because he knows how to play the game. And unfortunately, he's playing it very well right now. Marjorie Taylor Greene suffered yet another major meltdown recently after the Republican Party announced that they were essentially forming a new group, a new alliance, a new partnership with the log cabin Republicans in an effort to attract more of the LGBTQ community into the Republican Party. You know, the party that always claims it's the big tent party finally decided, you know what, maybe we ought to actually live up to that moniker. So we're going to start reaching out to the LGBTQ community. We're going to welcome them into the Republican Party with open arms, even though, of course, we do whatever we can to pass legislation to single them out and make them feel like horrible human beings. And, of course, this upset Marjorie Taylor Greene. So she took to Twitter not long ago and said this. Using people for their identity is what Democrats do, not Republicans. This actually hurts the log cabin Republicans by grafting their fundraising and weakens their effectiveness. And don't forget, GOP chairwoman, the rainbow is God's sign. Because, as we all know, Marjorie Taylor Greene is upset with the gay community for allegedly co-opting the rainbow from God. It's refracted light, is what a rainbow actually is. That's just a naturally occurring phenomenon, okay? But, you know, that a little beyond the scale of what Marjorie Taylor Greene is able to comprehend here. But here's the thing. The Republican Party is absolutely horrendous on LGBT issues. Absolutely terrible. This year alone, multiple Republican-led states have passed transgender athlete bans. Okay, this isn't exactly the kind of welcome message that community would want. You're taking a group of already marginalized people People that are preyed upon by members of your own party, picked on and bullied to the point of suicide or outright murdered. And part of that is because the demonization that comes at your hands, and of course the hands at the evangelical religious right, who also, by the way, is not happy with this decision. And now you're trying to say, come on in. We know we're passing legislation to specifically point you out and make your life worse. But come on, forget about it, right? We're not going to stop doing that, for the record. But we need your votes. We need you. It makes no sense. Like, the log cabin Republicans shouldn't even be a thing. Like, oh, you're okay with them literally oppressing you and taking away your rights for what? Tax breaks? Smaller government? How can it even be smaller government when the government extends their authority to regulate your life? They don't want you to be able to get married. That's about as big a government as you can get here in the United States. So nothing that the log cabin Republicans stand for makes any sense, right? They're all going against their own self-interests. Again, the only possible explanation is because they want tax breaks. Is that enough for you to willingly submit to oppression? Because to me, that doesn't seem worth it. And the small government argument, as I discussed, is absolute BS, because the Republicans, if you look at the numbers there, they tend to grow the government, not actually shrink it. They're a bunch of liars on that part too. But hey, anything that pisses Marjorie Taylor Greene off, it's got to be a good idea, right? Because this woman is against every single good thing in America. She doesn't want people to get vaccinated. She doesn't want gay people to be in the Republican Party. You know, she doesn't want to embrace these people and say, you're welcome here. She doesn't want to help people struggling to find work. She doesn't want to pass infrastructure, which would literally benefit every single county here in the United States. She is against everything that is good. So whenever we see her pissed off about something, we can most likely assume that something at least fairly decent just happened. During a recent appearance on the indicted Steve Bannon's podcast, Marjorie Taylor Greene warned of possible bloodshed if Joe Biden's agenda is allowed to pass. And the agenda she's talking about is the Build Back Better Act. So, you know, if we do things like invest in infrastructure, which a lot of the infrastructure funding is in the Build Back Better Act, if we invest in green technologies, if we try to give workers a little bit better benefits and help American people, the Republicans are going to resort to bloodshed? Here's what she says. Joe Biden didn't win the 2020 election, and everything we're seeing as a result of that. Okay, well, that's a lie. So let's continue with your lies. And it's going to frustrate our voters. They are sick and tired of electing people over and over again that continue to fail us, continue to create more debt, and continue the long, slow slide into a communist country. There it is again, Marjorie. You use that word communist. Communist. You have no idea what it means. You're a moron. Like, you learned one word in high school and you just ran with it. Like, everything I don't like is communist. Oh no, the person at the restaurant didn't put a pickle on my sandwich because they're a communist. That's what you are. That is exactly your train of thought in every situation. We haven't even gotten to the truly crazy part. We need a good plan that restores America back to the republic that it was founded to be, because our freedoms are so precious, Steve, that we do not want to lose them, and the only way you get freedom back after you've lost it is with the price of blood. The price of blood. So you're talking about revolution, is what you're talking about, once you've lost your freedoms. Marjorie, let me ask you this. What freedoms have you lost? What freedoms has anybody in this country lost? And I know conservatives are going to start hammering on the keyboard. Because the vaccine mandates. Oh, I'm sorry. You've lost the freedom to infect people with a deadly disease that could kill them? Oh, no. You never had that freedom to begin with, folks. You didn't. You know, maybe if you get a time machine, you go back and you talk to George Washington about vaccine mandates, and he would school your ass on how important they are and how important they were to even winning the Revolutionary War so that we could have a country. I mean, hell, when you look at it that way, this country was founded on frickin' vaccine mandates. So don't come at me with that bullcrap, because history proves you wrong every time. But more importantly, Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying here that there may be a revolution, there may be a civil war. And she continues, and no one wants a civil war in America, and that's why I'm going to be pushing hard in my Republican conference to hold not only Democrats accountable, but Republicans accountable well. So, if the Build Back Better Act passes, and granted, it is nowhere near as big as it should be, definitely isn't as big as it used to be, but it's still going to provide real material, tangible benefits to the American public. You're saying if that happens, people are going to die. And not because of the Build Back Better Act, because angry Republicans are going to kill them. Just so we're all on the same page, because that's what I'm getting from what you're saying. The price of blood, right? This woman needs more than just a psychological evaluation, in my opinion. But she also needs to be expelled from Congress. We cannot have elected officials in here threatening, which I firmly believe this is a threat, to commit violence against other Americans. You don't bring up things like the price of blood and then say, I don't want a civil war. But, that is absolutely seditionist, treasonous way of thinking. And she does need to be held accountable for it, but she never will be. And she's in a safe red district, so she's not going to be held accountable by the idiot voters who put her in office in the first place. That's what's so frustrating about all of this. She is the pimple on the ass of America that refuses to go away. In February of this year, shortly after taking office actually, Marjorie Taylor Greene was stripped of her committee assignments over past inflammatory remarks that she had made about several members of Congress where she openly advocated for violence against these individuals. And not only did every Democrat vote to strip her of committees, 11 Republicans also voted along with them. And this week, as we all know, last week, I guess it was at this point, Representative Paul Gosar was voted stripped of his committee. 2 Republicans voted with all the Democrats to strip him of his committees. But don't worry, because Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader, has now come out and said, if Republicans win the midterms next year, both of these 2 wacko extremists are totally getting their committee assignments back. Marjorie Taylor Greene has actually been boasting about this fact, telling everyone that McCarthy has been assuring her for quite some time that if they take that House back in the midterms, she's back on her committees. And oh boy, how dangerous is this going to be? Think about it this way. Marjorie Taylor Greene has been an exceptionally, volatile, I think is the word, member of Congress this year. But she has been able to do all of that, become extremist, become a household name, without even being on a committee, with having no power to actually speak of in the House of Representatives. So what's going to happen when this woman actually gets on committees once again and can really start to wreak some havoc there? Gosar, on the other hand, has been on committees up until a week and a half ago, so we know what he can and cannot do. He's actually, in spite of his extremism, he is not, as, I guess, out there as people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, but he is still an extremist. He is still, obviously, via that anime video, depicting himself committing violence against Democratic members of the House of Representatives. But these are not the kind of people we want to have more power. And I think that's something that the Democratic Party needs to start talking about today. Because McCarthy has already made it public. He's giving them back their assignments. So start running ads. Start showing their tweets. Start showing their actions. Talk about how bad these individuals are and let people know that they can stop them from getting any kind of power back by not letting Republicans take control of the House of Representatives. To me, it's very clear at this point what we're dealing with. Okay, we have one party the Democrats that, they're trying to do some good things. It gets watered down. They've got corporatists in there, and yes, they take corporate money, and that is horrible. And these people are, not working as hard as they could to benefit the American public. What do we have on the other side? On the other side, we have representatives who are openly advocating violence against Democrats. We have a Republican Party that is celebrating someone who killed 2 liberal, leftist, whatever you want to call them, protesters. Celebrating that hero for them, lifting him upon their shoulders. Matt Gaetz, a week ago, said, maybe I want to give him a job as a congressional intern. You have one side that is okay with death and murder and killing political enemies, and another side that isn't very good at giving you all the things that we need. Now, which one of those parties seems like the better one? And yes, I know, we need more choices. I hear that all the time, and I agree with you on that, but right now we don't have it. So you can either choose between the party that's giving us a little bit of what we need, or the party that wants you dead. I think that's a no-brainer. And those really will be the 2 choices as we approach next year's midterms. Trust me, I am not happy with the performance of the Democratic Party this year. But I am even less happy with the performance of the Republicans. And, I recently did an interview on the Ring of Fire podcast with Chauncey DeVega, and we talked about the fact that nobody is safe if these people take over. We have seen the way that they want to attack their political enemies. We have seen that they're okay with violence against their political enemies, that they're okay with murder of their political enemies. If you think you're not at risk, if you think you're safe, trust me, you are wrong. That's what's at stake in next year's midterms. And it begins with them putting these extremists, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar, back on their committees. In a Twitter rant on Saturday, a 7-part Twitter rant, so you know she was serious, Marjorie Taylor Greene encouraged her supporters to begin suing their doctors for not prescribing them ivermectin to treat COVID-19, which, as we all know, ivermectin is not a recommended treatment for COVID-19. Ivermectin is an anti-parasitic drug. I know people say it's the horse dewormer. It gets rid of worms and other types of parasites, typically in livestock, but it is used in human beings at a much smaller dosage, to treat things like malaria, not COVID-19. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is furious. The doctors are out there saying, I'm not going to prescribe you this. So she says people should sue their doctors for not being given these prescriptions, which, by the way, is not something you're allowed to do. But here's just part of her little rant here. Africans have been safely taking ivermectin for decades, and many clinical trials have proven ivermectin to be a very effective, safe, and cheap treatment against COVID. Any doctor refusing to prescribe ivermectin for COVID is participating in politics that is killing people. She added, with Africa's amazingly low death rate from COVID combined with the lowest vaccine rate in the world and very little masking, the civilized leader of the world should immediately stop their tyrannical forced shutdowns, vaccine mandates, and absurd masking policies. If you had a loved one die from COVID and they were not allowed to take ivermectin or monoclonal antibodies, you might have a wrongful death suit in your hands. Whew, so much wrong, I can't even continue reading the rest of the tweets. No, ivermectin has not been proven effective and safe and healthy in studies. That's simply not a thing that has happened. I don't know where these people get this, but I'm assuming they just make this crap up because they know nobody's going to go back and do the homework. If you have a prominent person, and unfortunately Marjorie Taylor Greene is a prominent person here in the United States, an elected member of Congress, that walks up to you and says, hey, in a study, this thing was proven safe and effective. Most people aren't going to challenge that. When you have idiots out there like Joe Rogan telling people like, hey, I took it and I turned out fine from COVID, that is leading people to believe that, oh, well, I should do this too. No, you shouldn't. You should listen to your doctors. Doctors are not out there to intentionally let people die from COVID by withholding life-saving treatment. That's not a thing that's happening in this country. And as far as Africa is concerned, I'm assuming Marjorie Taylor Greene hasn't heard of something called Omicron variant. Because, yeah, really working wonders over there. It's horrifying. The people there need the vaccines. But what gets me here is why are they pushing ivermectin. Like, who came up with ivermectin? With the idea that it treats COVID, at least. Like, suddenly this just became a thing. You had people rushing to livestock stores to buy the actual livestock ivermectin, overdosing on it. And they're still out there pushing it today. Why push one pharmaceutical over another is what is my big question, because that doesn't make any sense. If you were trying to, say that, oh, the drug companies are trying to keep the truth from you. No, who the hell do you think makes the ivermectin? It's the friggin' drug companies. It's the same ones. Don't you think that if they thought it would be effective, they would be the ones out there pushing it so they could make even more money off this? Your conspiracy makes no sense, and you gotta at least try to make the conspiracies make sense, Marjorie. But you've got nothing to back it up. You're sitting there lying to people, telling them to blame the doctor for their family member dying, instead of the person who maybe didn't, follow safety precautions. Maybe they were an anti-masker. Maybe they were an anti-vaxxer. And I'm not saying we should blame people for their deaths, but at this point in this pandemic, we're rapidly approaching the 2-year anniversary of this. We have had vaccines available widely for almost a full calendar year. At some point, people got to take the blame for this. At some point, you have to look at these individuals and say it's not the fault of the doctor. It's not the fault of the politicians, although their talking points, of course, are leading people to believe this. So yes, they do actually share part of the blame. But ultimately, these personal decisions, the freedom to choose, is what is killing people, because they don't know what's best for them because they listen to idiots like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Aaron Rodgers, who listened to Joe Rogan, or Tim Pool, who listened to Joe Rogan. Also, not doctors. Or you listen to these other anti-vaxxers out there like Robert Kennedy Jr. They don't have medical degrees. They didn't go to medical school. They don't know what they're talking about. You're not going to sue a doctor because he wouldn't give you an anti-parasitic drug for a viral infection. What that's going to do is add insult to the injury of already losing a loved one. So not only should you not be taking medical advice from Marjorie Taylor Greene, you shouldn't be taking legal advice from her either. Well, folks, we've got some real drama unfolding in the Republican Party this week, with Marjorie Taylor Greene on one side and Nancy Mace, a little-known Republican until like 3 days ago, on the other side. And the name Nancy Mace is probably familiar to people now because she's the individual who went on Fox News on Sunday and trashed vaccines, and then a couple hours later went on CNN and talked about how great vaccines are. So, in a matter of hours, Nancy Mace became the news of the country because of her stupidity. Well, apparently, Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to steal that spotlight back. And this week, after Nancy Mace found her newfound celebrity, she came out and actually said that Lauren Boebert's recent comments about Ilhan Omar and the Muslim faith in general were 100% wrong. She condemned them. That's it. Like, that's the big issue that started this massive blow-up, borderline civil war that Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to start at least, within the Republican Party. So here's what happened. Marjorie Taylor Greene gets on Twitter after Nancy Mace makes these comments, and she says this: Nancy Mace is the trash in the GOP conference. Never attacked by Democrats or rhinos, same thing, because she is not conservative, she's pro-abort. Mace, you can back up off of Lauren Boebert or just go hang with your real gal pals, the Jihad Squad. You're out of your league. And of course, she used the wrong your. She used Y-O-U-R instead of Y-O-U''R-E. Nancy Mace fires back. She corrects her grammatical error first. Your. And while I'm correcting you, I'm a pro-life fiscal conservative who was attacked by the left all weekend, as I often am, as I defied China while in Taiwan. What I'm not is a religious bigot or racist. You might want to try that over there in your little league. And if that were the end of it, fair enough. But then Nancy Mace actually came out and said something that I 100% agree with. And for the record, Nancy, no, you have not been attacked by the left. Nobody cared who you were till you made a fool of yourself on Fox and CNN this past weekend. So point for Marjorie Taylor Greene on that. Nobody was attacking you because nobody knew you even existed. But the next tweet from Nancy Mace is the one that I agree with. She tweeted out a couple of emojis. There was a bat. There was a piece of crap. And there was a clown. She was saying, via emojis, because I guess conservatives are scared of the bad words, that Marjorie Taylor Greene is batshit crazy. And she is. I don't disagree with the statement that Marjorie Taylor Greene is batshit crazy, because she's batshit crazy. But that, to me, tells you everything. You have Marjorie Taylor Greene defending Lauren Boebert, repeating her ridiculous Islamophobic slur against Ilhan Omar, and then attacking this nobody within the party that nobody cared about until a couple days ago and nobody cares about anymore because that story's come and gone now. But she wants to have the spotlight. That's what this is. Marjorie Taylor Greene couldn't stand the fact that this other woman, again, for only a couple days, had the spotlight, the national attention on her, so she had to redirect it to her. This party is insane. This party is batshit crazy. It's not just Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's all of them at this point. You're all Marjorie Taylor Greenes, just to varying degrees. Even people like Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney. I know y'all are considered the moderates, the sane voices in the party, but nah, you got a little bit of Marjorie Taylor Greene in you. She is the face of your party. And, as we now see, she's clearly trying to destroy it from the inside. And you know what? Let it happen. Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene wants people to understand that she and her friends like Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz and Jim Jordan, they're not the fringe of the party. They are the Republican Party. In fact, she said as much this week in a tweet. Here's what she tweeted out. There are a lot of people that need to hear this. We conservatives in the House Republican Conference aren't the fringe. We actually represent the base of Republican voters, which is approximately 70%. And when the party learns to represent conservative Americans, we will never lose again. Okay, well, she got the overall theme of it right before talking about things that are blatantly not true. Like the 70% number, where did you pull that? Like, what exactly is that? It was just 70%. 70% of what, by the way? You also didn't mention 70% of what? 70% of the Republican Party is conservative? I'm willing to bet that number's close to 100%. Or are you trying to say that 70% of the Republican Party is crazy? Now that I'd believe. Are you talking about 70% of the public at large? Because no, not even close. 70% of the American public is in fact not conservative. 70% of the American public is not a registered Republican. So I don't know exactly what you mean here, but I do know that whatever it is, it's wrong. But as far as not being the fringe, being the actual base of the party, she's not wrong about that. That is what the Republican Party has become today. I don't know if 70% is the right number of whatever, but this is what they are. And it's what they are because the people in actual positions of power, which Marjorie Taylor Greene is not, she's been stripped of all her committee assignments, but the people in power are bowing down to her. They're bowing down to Lauren Boebert. They're letting them do whatever the hell they want to do. And by virtue of that fact, they have become the face of the party. Marjorie Taylor Greene is out there doing Steve Bannon's podcast multiple times a week, talking to that fringe audience that she claims is the base. But it is spreading. When you have a majority of people in the Republican Party today that say they believe the 2020 election was stolen, yeah, that shows you that the crazies have won. The crazies have taken over. And every Republican who is what I guess would be considered normal for a Republican needs to look at this statement from Marjorie Taylor Greene. regardless of whether or not you support her personally, and I'm assuming, based on what we've seen, a lot of them don't, she's saying you're one of them. You're her. She is you. The two are interchangeable at this point. Is that what you want to be associated with in terms of your political affiliation? Because she's saying it is. She says that if you're a Republican, you're with her. The choice is yours. Personally, I wouldn't want to be associated with somebody who's, in my opinion, slightly psychotic. But hey, I'm not a registered Republican for a good reason. But far too many people are. And y'all have to start looking at yourselves and saying, is this what I am? Because if you continue to be a Republican, Marjorie Taylor Greene is clear here. You're with her. You're not a party of Mitt Romney's and Liz Cheney's. You're a party of Marjorie Taylor Greene's. And if you choose to stay there, that is what you have become. That is what you are embracing. And that is what you are telling the public you're fine with becoming. Marjorie Taylor Greene is sad. I know that's not an emotion we usually see from Marjorie, but she posted a video recently where she expressed her sadness and a little bit of anger about the fact that she is allegedly, according to her, the most attacked freshman lawmaker in the history of the United States. Here's what she said in her idiotic video. I have been the most attacked freshman member of Congress probably in United States history. The media has defamed me. They have completely smeared my character, called me names and labeled me horrible things, none of which I am. None of the things they have said are true about me. Let's not forget that a lot of the things that have been said about you, there's actually video evidence to back it up. I mean, we've talked about a lot of it right here. But here's the most important thing, Marjorie. You dish it out better than anybody else in Congress. Now you're telling us you can't take it? A little too weak, huh? You can go out there, call everybody else names, but when somebody calls you a horrible human being, it's the breaking point and you're the most attacked person ever. Really? I think you could be a little tougher than that, don't you? So let's look at the facts right here, right? Let's examine her claim that she is the most attacked freshman lawmaker in history. So let me ask you this, Marjorie. Has your staff had to undergo special training because of all the death threats you received? No, they haven't. But you see, that is what happened to the freshman lawmakers in the squad, specifically Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar during their first 2 years in office. Their staffs had to undergo specialized training because of the death threats. Oh, and let's not forget, actually, while she was a freshman representative, AOC, you showed up at her office and you posted a video of you harassing her through her mail slot. So of all the harassment she received, you, even though you weren't a lawmaker at the time, you were actually one of the people who did that. You recently said that we have to start calling all Democrats communists because that's what all Democrats are. Look, here's your quote. A lot of people are swallowing down the word socialist, but that's not a good enough word for Democrats. They are communists. That's the word we need to keep using with them because they're using these unprecedented, authoritarian, tyrannical controls on the American people to force people to comply. For the record, that is not at all what communism actually is. But you call everything communism because you don't know what the word means. Because everything you don't like is communist. And it just makes you look even dumber every time you use that word out of context. There is no way, there is no reality in which you are the most attacked member of Congress. All of the attacks that you have received have been well-deserved. And of course, you're the first one to go out there, attack your fellow lawmakers, both before and during your time in office. You're attacking the press, you're attacking President Biden, you're attacking everyone you could possibly attack in the cruelest ways possible. You're harassing them when they're talking to the media. Again, video of that. This woman is an absolute abhorrent human being. Forget about her being a Republican. Forget about her even being a lawmaker. As a human, she sucks. Let's also not forget the time just a few months ago, you posted a video of yourself in the middle of a workout, like you literally stopped working out to record a video of yourself where you just called Joe Biden a piece of shit. But no. You're the victim here, right? Because that's all conservatives know how to do. They go out there, attack everybody, smear everybody, libel, slander every opportunity they get. Then when anybody has the audacity to fight back against them, Republicans lie down and claim, I'm being attacked, I'm being canceled, everything's so horrible for me. And their idiot followers, because that's what they are, believe it, they eat it up. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not now, nor has she ever been, a victim. She is a bully that doesn't know how to handle it when people fight back against her. So she starts whining and crying and pissing and moaning on social media, trying to get more attention. Because if she can't get attention by being a complete jackass of a human being, she's going to try to get it by claiming that everybody's just so mean to her. Trump-loving lawyer Lin Wood increased, I guess you would call it, his attacks against Marjorie Taylor Greene this past week, where he said that Marjorie Taylor Greene, in addition to, being possibly a deep state operative of some kind, is also being controlled by the devil. That is right. Apparently, the devil did, in fact, go down to Georgia and took control of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, it's unclear when this happened, of course. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene has been making waves since before she was even elected, so I guess the devil was running the long game here and may have gotten a hold of Greene, back in 2017, maybe even 2016. Who knows? Lin Wood certainly doesn't give us a timetable, so, it's just up to speculation about when she, one, became controlled by the devil, and two, became a member of the so-called deep state. But that is the latest in this feud. And of course, Lin Wood also claims that Marjorie Taylor Greene owes him money for legal services. We discussed that a couple weeks ago, and he actually has a pretty good case for that. Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course, has been attacking Lin Wood, as has Sidney Powell. Wood is effectively left with absolutely no allies whatsoever. And he's facing, some pretty serious allegations, or accusations, I should say, from other folks saying that he was swindling them, basically taking money from the Rittenhouse Defense Fund and all kinds of stuff. It's a horrible situation because all of the crazies have turned against one another. Who would have thought in a million years that all these attention-seeking hacks would eventually have to turn on one another? I'm being sarcastic, obviously, because this was absolutely what was destined to happen. All of these people want the spotlight, right? And for a while, they were all able to get it. But the public's kind of moved on a little bit. Stories have died down every now and then, several times a week, one of them says or does something crazy or stupid or both. And so people talk about it. But then the next one has to come out. And they got to be even crazier and stupider than that. And it is this fight between people like Lin Wood and Sidney Powell and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz and all these other idiots. They've got to be the most crazy and outlandish and outrageous people out there in order to continue their little 15 minutes of fame. And I think that is what Lin Wood is doing here. Because in addition to telling the Daily Beast that she's controlled by the devil, possibly a deep state operative, he also says he may just go ahead and sue her for defamation. He says, they know what they did. They lied like dogs about me. Greene has falsely defamed me. How? About the whole money situation? About you maybe taking money out of those legal defense funds? I would think that's something you could easily prove didn't happen. So if she's accusing you of these things, and you want to file a defamation suit, of course, the burden of proof is on you at that point. If you didn't take money, there's records showing that you didn't take the money. You can show what it was spent on, right? So go ahead and file your defamation lawsuit. That seems like a pretty easy one. You're a lawyer. I'm not. And even I know how you would be able to prove, or of course not prove, that it did or didn't happen. So what are you waiting for? Wood has also said he may sue some folks at Fox News, including Tucker Carlson. Again, go for it. I got no problem with that. I have no problem with the crazies fighting amongst each other. Because all it does is garner more headlines and showcases how nutso these people truly are. So please, continue the fighting. Not only are we entertained by it, but it's reminding everybody about how crazy the Republican Party has become today. Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is angrier than usual right now. Except this time her anger is not directed towards Democrats, it's not directed toward President Biden, it's directed towards Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. So a little backstory on why Marjorie Taylor Greene is so angry here, and I'll get to her tweet in a moment, but I have to point this out. On Tuesday, Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, came to an agreement that Republicans would not filibuster a debt ceiling increase vote. And so the vote passed the Senate 50-49. Every Republican voted against it. And then it went to the House on Wednesday. The House passed it along party lines, with the only Republican voting for it being Adam Kinzinger. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, after this vote took place yesterday, was so mad, that she got on Twitter and went into a profane rant where she singled out Mitch McConnell. Here's what she said. The House of Representatives is voting after midnight tonight because Leader McConnell allowed Democrats to bypass the filibuster and ram through the debt ceiling increase to $31.5 trillion. Mitch is Biden's bitch. A sitting member of Congress, one of the most respected bodies in the world, ended her tweet by saying, Mitch is Biden's bitch. Sure, it's catchy. It rhymes, which is always fun, right? Because, she speaks like a toddler. Mitch is Biden's bitch. I don't say this lightly, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is trash. I mean, just the absolute trashiest human being you could have picked out of anywhere in this country and plopped her right down in the House of Representatives. She is trash. And this shouldn't be surprising to anybody. It is a little surprising because, we're not used to members of Congress saying these things. We're used to them saying them behind the scenes, right? You'll get leaked audio, you'll get a leaked phone call, a video, something that wasn't supposed to go public. But no, this was her public response. This is what she said to the public. She wanted everybody to know that she thinks Mitch is Biden's bitch. But this, of course, is the same woman who just a couple months ago, in the middle of a workout, decided to stop and make a video where she called Joe Biden, the president of the United States, a piece of shit. This is what we have, folks. This is what we're living through right now. We're living with the trashiest human beings representing people in the House of Representatives. Anyone in Georgia, in her district, that voted for her should be ashamed of themselves. And I know they're probably not capable of shame, but this is disgusting because this is a reflection of you. If this is what you like, then this is what you are, in my opinion. Everyone who voted for Marjorie Taylor Greene is trash, just like her. You picked one of your own, one of the most disgusting, despicable human beings out there, and you said, let's send her to Congress. Again, this is just the latest in a long line of just ridiculous behavior from Marjorie Taylor Greene. But here's the thing. This is going against her own party, right? She's mad at her own Republicans. So it'll be interesting to see, obviously, how much, I guess, support she gets from them. Are they going to bow down to her? Are they going to just cut her off from fundraising? Because they control the power of the purse. The party does. Are you actually, Republican Party, going to put a stop to this? Because you do have the power to do that. You could cut her off right now. Because if you don't, she's not only taking your party down, she's showing the rest of the country how trashy you all in the Republican Party truly are. The self-proclaimed unvaccinated Marjorie Taylor Greene has a little bit of explaining to do to her constituents, because as it turns out, According to her financial disclosure forms that she submitted on August 13th, she owns stock in 3 of the major pharmaceutical companies that are actually manufacturing these vaccines. So for somebody who goes around constantly trashing the vaccines and, again, telling people on multiple occasions, including a recent teleconference, that she herself is not vaccinated, she sure seems to be profiting off of these vaccines. So here's the thing. We know this because, one, her primary challenger, a woman by the name of Jennifer Strahan, revealed this. Because those financial disclosure forms, by the way, folks, not difficult to get a hold of, really easy to go through, but apparently nobody prior to this had thought about going through it until this woman who is challenging her in the Republican primary for her House seat said, you know what's a good idea? Let's go through her financial disclosure forms, which honestly, a little shocked again, reporters didn't do this prior to it. You know, it seems like a kind of thing that would be important, especially to show the hypocrisy of Marjorie Taylor Greene, because that's what this boils down to. She is out there telling us you can't trust these companies, you can't trust their products, but of course, she owns stock in them and is therefore making a profit off of all of these vaccines. Now, some may say, well, she's not being a hypocrite because she's actually telling people to not get the vaccines. Okay, fair enough assessment. But I ask you this. Do you really think Marjorie Taylor Greene is unvaccinated? I mean, is anybody buying that from this person? You really think she's being honest about this? That she's just been ever so lucky to not come down with COVID in the last 2 years after refusing to wear a mask, still going to crowded places, doing speeches, and somehow she just is that healthy that her immune system has fought off COVID? I seriously doubt that. I mean, maybe she's telling the truth for once. Obviously, we have no way of knowing this. And again, she has proclaimed herself on multiple occasions to be unvaccinated. But the fact that she owns this stock, that she is actually profiting off of this pandemic, is just further proof that members of Congress should not be allowed to own stocks. See, that's the other part of this story. You know, we had Nancy Pelosi come out last week, actually defend members of Congress owning, buying, and selling stock, saying, well, it's a free market system. You know, they should be allowed to participate. I should be allowed to participate, Pelosi says. No, because then you end up with situations like this, where members of Congress, the people that have been entrusted with making the laws, making the decisions that affect our everyday lives, end up profiting off of the pandemic. To me, that's a much bigger issue than just the hypocrisy of Marjorie Taylor Greene. But to be honest, on the hypocrisy issue, it should show her base that clearly even she doesn't buy into the BS that she's selling. If she thought these vaccines were a bad idea, if she thought people shouldn't be getting them, if we can't trust Big Pharma, she would not own stock in them. She's making money off of this. But her constituents, her followers, her base, they are the ones who are paying the price. They're the ones who are taking her advice and not getting protected. So while she's making money, they're being admitted to ICUs. They're being buried by their family members after they die of COVID. And she's laughing all the way to the bank. During her speech at the America Fest this past weekend, because apparently that's a thing, Marjorie Taylor Greene told the crowd that the state of New York has passed a law that allows them to forcibly detain, possibly even forcibly vaccinate anyone that the state deems to be a public health threat. Now that's pretty intense, right? I mean, New York officials can just come up to you and be like, hey, we believe you're a threat. You're going to go be locked in a jail cell until you're willing to get this vaccine or until we forcibly inject it into your veins. We don't want that in the United States. So it's no wonder the crowd responded with horror when Marjorie Taylor Greene told this story. But unfortunately, that's exactly what it was. A story. It's fiction. That's not a law on the books in the state of New York. It's not a law in the books anywhere in this country, as far as I know. And when reached for comment, Marjorie Taylor Greene's people sent a link to a piece of legislation that has been sponsored actually 4 different times now by a New York assemblyman by the name of Nick Perry. Nick Perry has put forward this piece of legislation that wouldn't quite go as far, by the way, as what Marjorie Taylor Greene is suggesting, but it would, in fact, allow people that the state deems to be public health threats to be detained, for a couple days or possibly up to 60 days. Of course, the state would also have the authority to override this. Health professionals could override this if they believe the person is not a public health threat. And Mr. Perry, as I said, has put forward this legislation 4 different times. And none of those times has it actually even been brought to the floor for a vote, because even the Democrats in this assembly understand that's a bit extreme. That really kind of goes beyond the scope of what we're able and allowed, of course, constitutionally to do. And I understand where Nick Perry's heart is on this, right? We don't want another Typhoid Mary type situation, especially with COVID running rampant and Omicron and Delta and all that. And that, of course, is what this is a response to. So if we have somebody out there that is knowingly spreading COVID, intentionally, then yes, they would be a public health threat. We could detain them. Not all that bad on paper. But at the same time, you can't criminalize being sick. We already have laws in place saying that you cannot knowingly infect another person with a potentially deadly disease. So we don't need this additional piece of legislation, because to her credit, to Marjorie Taylor Greene's credit, I will say this is exceptionally extreme legislation that I do not support. But Marjorie Taylor Greene couldn't talk about it in the sense that, hey, look at what the Democrat wants to do, right? You could have actually said something accurate had you phrased it like that. But instead, you told that crowd who doesn't know any better that this was already a law on the books, which, of course, again, it is not. It's so extreme that it hasn't even been brought up for a vote. Marjorie Taylor Greene just always happens to be her own worst enemy, right? You could have had a win. You could have made it seem like, hey, look at this extremist out there. Instead, all the fact checkers had to look at this and go and report how you lied to that audience. Not that that audience will know it, but the rest of the country who reads those reports will understand what is going on. And of course, they'll understand that you don't know the difference between sponsoring an outrageous piece of legislation and actually getting it passed into law. Donald Trump is still getting a lot of fallout after pushing vaccines, or at least expressing not hatred of vaccines last week. And so this week, Marjorie Taylor Greene decided to rush in and play the hero to protect Donald Trump from all of the angry MAGA folks out there. So on Monday afternoon, Marjorie Taylor Greene went into a 15-tweet rant, not quite as intense as her 20-tweet rant over the weekend, but this was a 15-tweet one, where she laid out what Donald Trump really believes, and of course, immediately went into deflection mode. I'm going to read a couple of these absolutely ridiculous tweets. Here's the first one. I just got off the phone with my favorite president of all time, Donald J. Trump. We discussed many issues, people, races in 2022, as well as vaccines and mandates. We discussed COVID-19, how awful the virus from China has been, and how horribly it's been politicized. Second tweet. I have President Trump's permission to tell you that he is 100% against the mandates, but he still encourages everyone to get the vaccine and booster. That is his position. He also said if he was president, he would never mandate the vaccines and no one would be fired. Tweet 3. The key thing to remember is where COVID-19 came from. China. We should be holding those who made the virus accountable, not fighting one another, and protecting our freedoms while promoting life-saving treatments and giving the vaccines to those who want it, not forced. Tweet 4. For everyone that criticizes President Trump about when COVID started with shouldas, couldas, and wouldas, I think he and his administration did the best they could. The virus was brand new and we'd never seen anything like it. Biden deserves the criticism. He has no excuses. Do you want me to continue, or are we good enough with the absolutely idiotic drivel from just the first 4 out of 15 tweets that she sent out there? It's absolutely pathetic. Marjorie, you do know that you're supposed to just lick the boots, not totally deep-throated here, right? Because that's what you're doing. You may need to take some Metamucil because you're going to have a hard time passing that boot through because you have clearly consumed the whole damn thing. Like, this is absolutely pathetic, suck up, just disgusting behavior from this woman. Like, I have his permission to tell you these things. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. What you're attempting to do is run interference for Donald Trump, who's furious right now. I have to imagine the dude is fuming down there at Mar-a-Lago because he can't get on Twitter and fire back at people like, oh, boosters are good, but mandates are bad. He has got to be losing his damn mind. And I love it. I'm here for that all day. What's disturbing to me is how much of a lapdog somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene is for Donald Trump when she wasn't even a member of the House, but for what, 2 weeks during his administration? That's it. Like, these two didn't have a prior relationship. There was no rapport between them. She didn't have his back for 4 years. She's just some random wacko who got elected because she talked about how much she loved him, and now she's acting like they've been best buddies for years. She's using him because he's politically expedient for her. She believes that latching on to Donald Trump is going to continue to propel her political career forward. But I promise you, if she were running in anywhere that wasn't a safe Republican district, she would get slaughtered in an election. She would absolutely have no chance of winning. But because she is in that deep red district in Georgia, she's not worried about anything. She's not worried about the Republican primary challengers that she's got this year. She's not worried about any of it. And as long as she continues to kiss Donald Trump's ass whenever he bends over, she thinks she's going to be okay. This virus was not made, by the way, to go ahead and dispel that idiotic myth that she points out there. I know you want to say that, oh, they manufactured it as biological warfare. No, there's no evidence to suggest that. You sound like a crazy person when you say it. Of course, you sound like a crazy person no matter what you say, so kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't there, right, Marjorie? But could you just maybe lay off the sucking up a little bit? It's disturbing. Nobody wants to see that on their Twitter feed. It's pathetic. It makes you look desperate and clingy. So knock it off a bit. If Trump has something to say, he's more than welcome to issue one of his idiotic little statements and hope like hell that the people on Twitter actually care about it. An alleged Capitol rioter got smacked down by a judge this week after the rioter tried to have his case dismissed, or the alleged rioter. Again, you got to say alleged because they have not been convicted, but the alleged rioter had to attempted to have his case dismissed because he's used what I'm calling now the Marjorie Taylor Greene defense. And the Marjorie Taylor Greene defense is quite simple. She has told us repeatedly that these people languishing in prison, these suspected Capitol rioters, are truly political prisoners. They were selected for prosecution not because of the crimes they may have committed, but because of their party affiliation. And that is exactly what this alleged rioter tried to argue with the judge to get his case dismissed. He said, I am not here. I was not arrested because of a potential crime. My only crime was being a Trump supporter, and that is why I'm being prosecuted. Well, the judge smacked that down pretty dang quick, as you could imagine. But I gotta tell you, the argument, like when you look at the whole argument that this alleged rioter put forward, through his lawyers, of course, it's not that bad. I'm going to be honest, it's really not that bad. Because what this alleged Capitol rioter, let's go ahead and for the record assume that every time I say Capitol rioter, I'm putting the word alleged in front of it because I'm tired of saying it. So they're all alleged, unless they've been convicted. So anyway, this individual, via their lawyers, tried to argue that this was a selective prosecution for this individual because all those Portland rioters from last summer, about 96% of them had the charges against them dropped. None of them were prosecuted, barely. And honestly, not a bad comparison in my opinion. Luckily, I'm not a judge. So here's what the judge had to say. For any of these discrepancy to matter, Judd must show that the Portland defendants are similarly situated to him. He cannot do so. Although both Portland and January 6 rioters attacked federal buildings, the Portland defendants primarily attacked at night, meaning that they raged against a largely vacant courthouse. In contrast, the January 6 rioters attacked the Capitol in broad daylight, and many entered it. Thousands of congressional staffers walked the Capitol's corridor that day. So did hundreds of legislators and the vice president, all of whom appeared for a constitutionally mandated proceeding. So even the judge said, hey, listen, sure, they both attacked federal buildings. But the Portland folks literally attacked a building. They weren't going in there. They weren't stealing things from it. They weren't threatening to kill people that were inside it, like some of the rioters did. Hang Mike Pence, let's not forget that. So you're really comparing apples to oranges here. And not to mention the fact, and I will point this out, because it happened to me one time. I tried to get out of a speeding ticket by saying that the folks in front of me, I was annoyed. I said, hey, look, all the folks in front of me, they were going even faster than I was. Why am I being singled out here? And the cop, being a good Southern boy, he says, you ever go fishing? I said, yeah, of course I've gone fishing. He said, did you catch them all? I said, no. And he goes, same here. That's how it is. Sometimes people do crimes and people don't get prosecuted for crimes. Sometimes they get away with it. Sometimes you get caught and you have to face the music. That doesn't make what you did any less bad just because other people who did it didn't get caught. And of course, in this instance, we're not even talking about people who did the same thing. We're talking about people in a different city under different circumstances, and most of the charges were dropped against them because the cops either one, couldn't identify individuals, or two, when they finally looked at it and saw these individuals, they couldn't prove that any of them did a crime. It is what it is. I'm glad that Judge McFadden did not agree to dismiss this case on these grounds, and to be honest, I'm kind of shocked that the judge even took the time to explain to the defendant why the two situations weren't even similar. You didn't even have to do that. You could have denied the request and moved on. But hey, maybe the defendant learned something there. Not the difference between Portland and the Capitol, but using the Marjorie Taylor Greene defense of being a political prisoner. Yeah, hasn't worked out for anybody so far. So maybe it's time to let that one go.